It is day 48, and here's a nice panorama of Virginia. I'm in the Pearisburg region. So it is day 48, but I want to do a little day 47 recap. So yesterday, kind of a gloomy start because I'd said goodbye to Emily. I won't see her for, I don't know, 9 weeks or so, depending on how I get on. So I was kind of lost in my thoughts somewhat yesterday morning. And then I was woken up suddenly when a branch of a tree almost fell on me. So I heard a very loud crack, thankfully glanced upwards and just spotted this huge branch just on its way down to the ground. Managed to take a few steps backwards and it just missed me. So a little lesson there. And funny enough, the peak on my cap, you know, probably didn't help actually. I would have seen it a little sooner if I, you know, my view of straight up wasn't blocked. So that woke me up a little bit. So yesterday, obviously, it was my first day back on the trail, having had 4 days off. My feet were killing me, so I took some Advil, ibuprofen, put some anti-inflammatory on my feet. I put my heel lift orthotics back in my shoes, did all kinds of stuff, and kind of got through the day that way. So I had an 8-mile bailout, which I didn't avail of. I just had lunch there. It was a shelter. And I decided to go on to the next option, which was 15.3 miles. As it happens, I did take that option, but the next one was to continue another 2.2 up to a shelter. But based on the weather forecast, which was for more and more rain, I decided to go to a place called Woods Hole Hostel. And Woods Hole Hostel has been in operation for some decades, but the building itself is the oldest hostel building on the trail. It was built in the late 1890s and was in fact built by the grandparents, maybe it was great grandparents, I don't know, of the lady who actually operates it now still. I think I've got that right. So beautiful place. It was about half a mile off the trail. Real homely kind of place, a little bit hippie-ish, which I like. There was a dinner option where you had this communal meal around a big table. There must have been 18 to 20 of us, but the lady, she actually did this for breakfast as well. So we had to all join hands before we sat down, and I was dreading that it was going to be some sort of a prayer session, but thankfully it wasn't. Instead, she just wanted to go around clockwise and ask us to introduce ourselves, and if we could think of something that we were grateful for, to mention it. So it was kind of nice. It was sort of very American, very kind of hippie-ish, but it's sort of pleasant. It was nice to listen to people and sort of hear what they're feeling, because the vibe on the trail is kind of different now to what it was, say, a month ago. A lot of the people who were struggling are now not struggling, or they've gone home, and a lot of people who are maybe not as prepared as they should have been, similar, they've either sorted themselves out or they've given up. So what you now have on the trail are people who are a lot more sort of chilled. They're kind of in the groove a bit more, or perhaps they were always in the groove. And funny enough, I'd probably say perhaps a lot more like kind of my attitude. I guess I could sort of see that in a lot of people, where they just seemed to resign themselves to, what I think is the right attitude on something like this, to just think of it as you're just living on the trail for 5 or 6 months, rather than thinking of those dreaded little fractions that you've done. So you're just transferring your life over to here and living with it for a number of months. So it's kind of nice. Everyone's a bit more mellow, a bit more chilled, a bit more resigned to the fact that they're going to be here for a long time. And it was just a lovely evening and a lovely morning and great food. So there you go. So that was the day over. Quite a tough day with a great ending. So that was really nice. So I'll sign out at day 47 on that score. So catch you later. Howdy doody. So it is day 48. Just had a little ad hoc panorama view there that I thought I'd share with you. It's kind of nice. So I'm now approaching, I'm probably halfway through my day, and I'm approaching Petersburg, the point where I should have been a day and a half of hiking ago, where Emily was to collect me. So I am probably 20 miles off my original, if you want to call it a target, but I'll catch that up very soon. This is relatively easy going compared to the first few weeks, so I will get there. So basically the next, let's call it, I've got to get comfortable with saying target. Everyone here keeps saying don't have targets, don't have targets. Okay, the next target is the entrance to Shenandoah National Park, where I'm going to meet Roy. So yesterday was the first day of 20 days of hiking, between Emily's visit and Roy's visit, that I've got to cover, including the little bit that I was behind with. Had to cover 270 miles, if I remember rightly. So that's 13 and a half a day, which is not difficult. In this section it's not difficult. So that's where I'm at. My intention is to get at least one day ahead of that, because we're planning on having a day on the water and just kayaking down some of the Shenandoah River for a day, just for a bit of a change. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be a bit of a laugh. So that's that. I'm gonna, before I discuss it on camera, I'm gonna discuss it with Roy, but I have a slight twist to that plan too, because I do want to try and give myself more time to get up to Toronto to be with Emily and the girls in July. So I'm trying to get a few days ahead of that stage of the hike, and see what I can do about that. But that would be great if I can, have 5 or 6 days up there instead of 3 or 4, So that's that. So this morning started really cold. Yesterday the weather was kind of crap. It was very, very wet, very showery. Today it hasn't rained, but it has been windy and the temperature is quite low. So I've had my fleece on since I left the hostel this morning, and I was almost putting gloves on, which would have been a first in quite a while. So yeah, my pack feels a bit better. I gave Emily some of my winter stuff. Gave her the big puffy jacket, gave her my other fleece, gave her the liner from my sleeping bag, a couple of other odds and ends. So probably got rid of about 3 pounds of pack weight. So I've just taken in my gilet. She brought my gilet over to me, which is, if I do get cold, I have that to put on. And that's it. It does feel a bit better. I do have a full resupply with me though. I have a good, at least 4 days of food, and a ton of snack bars, so I've been working my way through those. So there you go. I'll catch you later. Bye. It's kind of interesting. Looks like someone's used that as a fireplace. The trail goes on down this way. Just taking a little side trail to a little viewing platform called Angel's Rest. Rather nice. I guess that's Petersburg down there. That's the New River. Not sure about this part of the trail. I think I want my money back. We're just crossing a big river bridge here. I think it's the New River, which is the river that our inn overlooked when Emily was here. So it's kind of cool, kind of cute. Catch you later. So that was my bedroom last night. Just about to make some breakfast. It's a beautiful morning. I don't know whether you can make out. Nice low cloud over there. Over the land, we're up quite high here. Can't remember the elevation. 4,000-ish. I guess that's the rice field that the shelter is named after. It's called Ricefield Shelter. That's rather nice. So there was one guy camping there, he's already gone, and another guy there who's just gone to get his bear bag. So there you go. Catch you later. Good morning, Ireland. It is Wednesday, May 15th, and this is day 49. So, pleasant night last night. Myself and two others were at the shelter, Ricefield Shelter. It was quite nice. Beautiful morning. The shelter's up very high, so you get a great view over southern Virginia at sunset and sunrise. So the temperature was very cold last night. It got down to about 3 Celsius, but my kit was fine. I didn't have everything, all layers on. I had my little gilet on that Emily brought over for me. But no, I'm happy. That was an unusual cold spell for this time of year in this area, so everything still performed sufficiently well. So it's warming up quite quickly. I've been on the trail about 30 minutes. I'm already down to a t-shirt, so it really is warming up. It's supposed to get up to about 18 C today, and it's clear blue skies, so haven't seen that for a week or so. So a quick question from Martin about what I'm listening to, if I'm listening to anything at all, etc. So just to get one aspect of that out of the way, at night I use my Kindle, so I read ebooks. And one of the things I did before I left was I asked some friends to recommend a book, and I would read whatever they recommended. So I'm on the second of those books, which, funny enough, was recommended by Martin, which was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's good. It's pretty heavy, quite philosophical. Stupidly, or well, not stupidly, but what makes it sort of difficult to absorb what's going on in the book is I tend to read it at night, so I'm kind of sleepy. I tend to fall asleep, and it auto powers off. So but I'm probably 3/4 of the way through that book. So outside of the book, I do have earphones with me. I don't like using them. I kind of like to be a bit more aware of what's going on around me, and hearing sounds of the forest, etc. Sometimes if I know there's no one around or no one near me, I'll play music through my phone, just from my iTunes. And that can be various things. Most commonly for me it's Pink Floyd, but I like a bit of Grace Jones and some ska and what have you, so I'm kind of enjoying that. The other thing I do during the day, if I stop for a break, I have the Blinkist app, so quite often you can sort of read a book in, it's a summary of a book you get with Blinkist, so there's lots of titles. They tend to be more sort of professional books, but they're still very interesting. And you can read a book in the time it would take you to have a cup of tea, effectively. So that's kind of cool. I thought I would get into the whole podcast audiobook type thing, but I really haven't. Maybe later on in the trail I will. My data coverage with T-Mobile is rubbish, so it's kind of difficult unless I download something when I'm in the Wi-Fi zones, but I never really think of it, to be honest with you. But I don't miss it. I like to sort of listen to the forest. So there you go. So that's about it. I'll talk to you later. This is a cool little shelter. This is Pine Swamp Branch Shelter or something like that. We got a little fire pit, picnic table, bunk beds, and a fireplace, which is kind of cool. So these little things you might be curious about. These are for hanging your rucksack at night. So you just hook your rucksack over, you know, on this thing. But these are designed to stop mice from crawling down the rope and straight into your pack, and they'll chew up your pack. So they kind of can't get any, you know, traction when they come over the side here. So that's one way of keeping them out of your pack. So you get various flavors of these things. Just bottle ends and whatever threaded through the twine. That's cool. I'd say this has had some nice sessions now. The fire lit, and you know, on a cold night, I'm sure it's lovely. So there you go. It's still a beautiful day. I'm not staying here. I'm just going to have some lunch and then moving on another 4 or 5 miles to the next shelter. So there you go. Fairly typical shelter, but with a fireplace. I've only seen fireplaces in 3 or 4 shelters. There you go. Cool. So here's something I think is cool. So we have a blowdown, fairly recent, right across the trail. So what the trail maintainers do is they cut out a big hunk of it like this and roll it to one side and leave this gap behind. But this happens to be a particularly beautiful piece of wood. Look at this. I'd love to have that log in my garden and carve it into something. I don't know what. I'm not going to stand here and count all those rings, but it's a big one. Hang on, give it some scale again. And yeah, beautiful. If you go down in the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, I don't know the words of that song. No, I don't think it's teddy bear picnic day today. Based on a load of dogs barking I could hear earlier on, I think they were irritated by something. Could it have been a bear? Who knows? So, today's trivial point that's been rattling around in my head has been my inconsistency with numbering these days. So, I'm thinking, on the one hand, the 4 individual zeros that I took before Emily came over, I counted those as, you know, trail days. And then the 4 days I took off, I didn't. So I'm going to change my mind on that one, and I'm going to count the total. So with that in mind, good morning Ireland. It is Thursday, 16th of May. This is day 54. So that means this is my 46th hiking day, and I've had 8 zeros. Okay, so we're all up to speed. Catch you later. So last night was a perfect example of what trail life would be like if you walk without being under or feeling under pressure to cover certain numbers of miles. So when I got to Pine Branch Swamp Shelter, or whatever that place was called, I was only planning to stop for lunch. It was something like mile 12.4 or something like that for yesterday. I had intended to continue on to the next shelter, which was another 3.9 miles. But because some really nice people rolled into the shelter, we got some really good conversations going, I decided to stay. And it doesn't really matter a damn, because the miles per day needed to get to the meeting point with Roy is quite low. It's 13 3/4 miles per day. So it's no big deal to stop at 12.4. Today is the first of 17 days where I just need to average 13.8 or something like that, and that's very doable. In fact, today the plan is to do, purely because of the spacing of shelters, I'm planning on doing something like 18, but there's no pressure. If I come across a nice place to camp or meet some nice people or whatever, I can take that option. I suppose I will be mindful of, I really should try to hover around the 14-mile mark, but it's an easy one to catch up on, unlike over the last month where I had this kind of difficult target of sort of 17, 18 miles a day to do in order to get to Pearsburg. It just made it that little bit more difficult. So there you go. That's my thought for today, or this morning. I think this is going to be edited out. This is a little side trail up to the viewing point. Let's have a wee look. Ooh, wow. Nice. Bit of a view. So this is a little spot called Kelly Knob. Just came out of the trees there and crapped my pants as I had to jump over here. And once you're over here, you get a pretty cool view. Yeah, nice, beautiful. I've been kind of walking in the trees most of the day, so it's kind of nice to come out and see something like this. Nearly done for the day. Another mile or so. Oh, a bit of a dip down there. Look at that. Wow.